All right, y'all. So we finally back with UFC picks, man. It's been way too long of a break, so we're gonna just get straight back into it. Before I do that, though, guys, make sure you guys drop a like on this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and make sure you guys come back to this video when we go undefeated on picks, man. Cause we did our research, we gonna do our picks, and all we can do is sit back and watch once the fight starts. So, hey, look, we're gonna get into the first fight of the night. Now I'm looking at Share and usually they have the fight order correct. So the first fight they have up, as the first fight of the night is gonna be Alexander Romanov versus Blagoy Ivanov, and obviously Alexander Romanov had a very very terrible performance in his last fight versus Alexander Volkov, where he came in overweight. He's fought at 260 before, but he just looked really out of shape. Like he just looked like he bloated up. He was really bloated, had nothing, landed no strikes, was desperate for the takedowns, couldn't get it, and ultimately got finished. And then Blagoy Ivanov is coming off of a loss to Marcin Tybura, where the fight was kind of back and forth for the most part on the feet. But in the third round, Blagoy pretty much gave up like an entire round of ground control, which is making me want to lean towards Romanov for him to get the win. The only thing that's kind of making me kind of stop in my tracks is that Romanov is currently on like a 2-fight losing streak. He did lose to Marcin Tybura also, where that was just a fight he just couldn't get his game plan going, and then he lost to Volkov. So, I'm gonna go with Romanov. If he weighs under 260, if he's anything over 260, then I'll say Blagoy. But my official pick is gonna be Alexander Romanov. Obviously, like once again, I'm telling you guys right now, when weigh-ins come, if Romanov weighs anything over 260, I will instantly change my pick to Blagoy Ivanov. So keep that in mind. But the next fight we're gonna get into is Ivana Petrovic versus Luana Carolina. And this fight's gonna be pretty much a striker versus grappler type of match. The thing about it with Ivana Petrovic is that she is mostly a grappler, and her striking's really not that good, and she doesn't really have great takedowns. She doesn't shoot double legs or anything like that. She more so just gets the fight to the cage or tries to get it there. When she gets it there, she kind of works her takedowns there, but she's not adamant about it. There's some wrestlers or grapplers that they're going to set up their, striking to, get into clinch situations. She's just kind of out there just striking, waiting, and that can drag out in a 3-round fight. And a fighter like Luana Carolina, her strike, she definitely is the better striker. The striking is kind of loopy with her, but she does have great takedown defense. And like I said before, Ivana Petrovic does not have any good takedowns, no double legs, no real way to get the fight to the ground other than, getting up against the cage. And Luana herself is decent, against the cage, and she has better striking than Petrovic with an 80% takedown defense. So I think that's just going to lead to Luana being able to just defend the takedowns, if any is there at all. And it's going to be a mostly striking match. And I think we can all agree, if you do your research, Luana Carolina is a better striker. So I'm going to go with Luana Carolina in this fight. She is the underdog, so do with that what you guys want to do. The next fight we got is Guram Kutladze versus Elves Brenner. Now, Elves Brenner got a gifted decision in his last fight versus Zabira Tukagov. I think that was just because Tukagov was very, he just wasn't high volume enough. I don't know what was going on with the judges in that card, but Brenner has no real striking. The only thing he really has a chance with is a ground game, and his takedowns is pretty much non-existent. With a guy like Guram who has great takedown defense and great striking, I think it should be a simple Guram lock play. I don't see how Guram could possibly lose unless he randomly gets submitted somehow. But once again, Guram is great on the feet, good takedown defense. So I just really don't see a way how Brenner has any shot of winning this fight, and there's a reason why Guram is like a minus 690 favorite right now. So for that pick, I'm gonna go with Guram. Next fight we got is Yana Santos versus Carol Rosa. Now the thing about Carol Rosa is that she does have a good ability to get the fight against the cage and kind of work from there in the clinch. Her striking is pretty decent, and the same thing with Yana Santos. But the thing that was alarming about Yana Santos' last fight, she kind of was rushing a ton, and that was her first fight off of her having a child. So I don't really know how confident I can be in picking her to win. And Kara Rosa actually did get a knockdown versus Norma Dumont, and I thought that she won the fight. I thought that she clearly got robbed. I don't know how Norma Dumont got the decision on that fight. Kara Rosa looked great in her last fight. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Kara Rosa to win this fight. Now, I'm not too confident about it because once again, you know how it's a woman's fight and it's at featherweight. So Yana's a decent striker. So is Kara Rosa. So you never know how it really can go. But I think that Kara Rosa's grappling and her ability to kind of clinch against the cage should be able to edge out Yana Santos. Cause I think Yana Santos is gonna, she's pretty much just gonna collide and try to crash into Kara Rosa, and I don't think that's gonna work out well for her. So the official pick for that fight is gonna be Kara Rosa. The next fight we got is Joanderson Brito versus Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson is stepping up on short notice, and Joanderson Brito is a savage. Like, it's as simple as that. The man is a savage. He pretty much goes for it right away, either a knockout or a submission, and he can actually hang the later rounds. He does tend to fade a little bit, but he still actually does have power. He still does walk forward, so he doesn't give up on himself, even though he kind of slows down a bit in the third round. The thing about Weston Wilson is he just doesn't have any real striking. It's like there's nothing that's going to be threatening on the feet for Brito. And even in terms of the ground, Brito's going to have the advantage there. Weston is pretty decent on the ground, but once again, he has no real way to get it there. And his striking is pretty much just not dangerous at all. So standing on the feet with Brito in that first round, short notice, some may say that might be his best chance because, if the fight drags on, maybe he might get tired because it's short notice. But I'd say he just doesn't have a chance at all. Like, on the feet, like, his striking is just pretty much, there's nothing there. So there's a reason why Joanderson Brito is a minus 1,600 favorite. If he goes in there and does what he should do, the fight should be over pretty quickly. I think it might be over in the first round. So Brito is going to be the pick. Next fight we got is Renat Fakhretdinov.
I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Versus Kevin Lee. The return of Kevin Lee. And straight away, I'm just going to say Renat is going to be the pick. And the reason why Renat is going to be the pick is because Kevin Lee, I mean, he's fought a lot of different guys, but he's had his moments where on the ground, he's pretty much just lost all of those fights on the ground. The only fight I could really remember Kevin Lee pretty much being dominant on the ground that was meaningful was against Barbosa, Edson Barbosa, and when he got that choke finish versus Chiesa. But I mean, Chiesa gets finished on the ground, so that's not too surprising. And then Barbosa's not a grappler, so that in itself is also not surprising. And Kevin Lee's been subbed by RDA in an arm triangle choke. He's been subbed by Tony Ferguson in a triangle choke, and he's even been choked out by Charles Oliveira on an entry on an entry takedown by a guillotine choke. So he's definitely there to be choked. He has a ton of losses by choke or by submission, and Renat is really good on top. He's really good with just a constant chain wrestle. He's gonna chain wrestle. It's not gonna be like the Gregor Gillespie fight where Kevin Lee got that knockout where Gregor Gillespie's just constantly testing out the strike. And some grapplers are stupid like that. They'll actually sit there and think that they're strikers, and they'll play the striking game for a little bit too long without just getting their main game plan rolling. And I think Renat is going to be able to do that really well. Kevin Lee may be able to hang for a little bit, but him coming off that surgery and then having that lackluster performance against Diego Sanchez, it's like I just don't see him being able to do much of anything. I think that Diego Sanchez fight might have been at lightweight, I'm not sure, but regardless of the fact, he didn't do much versus Diego Sanchez. And yeah, Renat is going to just be able to win the wrestling exchanges, and he might even get a sub. Renat might be live for a finish, but Renat's going to be the pick. The next fight we got is Bruno Ferreira versus Nurulstan Ruziboyev, who's taking a fight on short notice against Bruno Ferreira. And Bruno Ferreira does have power. He does have only 10 fights on his record, though. Nursultan Ruziboyev has like about 40 plus fights. They're both young, but I'm going to lean towards Ruziboyev. I think he's going to have the ability to be able to control the fight on the floor. Bruno is not a slouch on the floor, but I think that, in his last fight, there was openings where Gregory Rodriguez could have made something happen on the floor, but he kind of got addicted to striking. He thought he was a knockout artist. And he ended up getting himself knocked out. Now, I'm not taking away anything from Bruno Ferreira because I think he even took that fight on short notice. But the way how Gregory Rodriguez had his hands down, kind of swaying back and forth in front of Bruno Ferreira against the cage, that led to his demise in the fight, which led to him getting knocked out. So I'm going to go with Nursultan. I think he just has a lot of ways to win the fight. He could get a knockout. He could get a submission. He has like 12 knockouts and like 20 submissions. So he's going to be live to win this fight. I think he might be the livest underdog on this card. I like Luana Carolina, to be honest. I really think she's going to be able to win that fight, but it's women's MMA. Like, anything can happen. But yeah, Nursultan Ruziboyev, he should be able to get this done. I think that people are gonna ride that Bruno Ferreira hype train. Oh, he knocked out RoboCop. He knocked out RoboCop, and then he's gonna end up, losing the fight. So I'm gonna go with Nursultan Ruziboyev to win. Next up, we got. Oh yeah, also Ruziboyev is the underdog. So take what you want to do with that. And just to scroll through really quickly, I got Romanov for that pick. He should be the favorite. He's the favorite. Carolina underdog. Guram heavy favorite. Rosa or Carol Rosa slight, or she should be the favorite. Jonas and Brito big favorite. Renat favorite. Ruziboyev underdog. And then next up we got Benoit Saint Denis taking on Ishmael Bonfim. Now, this is another instance where I think a lot of people are going to be running around and they're going to be following the hype train of the Bonfim brothers because of the performances we seen them have last fight. Their last fight at UFC 283. Bonfim did well versus Terrence McKinney, but McKinney was just in that fight not to get finished at a point. You could kind of see it after a while. He was just kind of just in that fight to not get hit, and it led to him just getting flying kneed. And we know that Terrence McKinney fights like he's in a car crash, like he's out in a car crash fest. That's how he pretty much likes to fight. And he really didn't implement his takedowns that much. He did have slight instances where he was, he kind of just dragged Bonfim down to the floor. I think Bonfim's only losses are 3 submissions. His literal only losses is 3 submissions, and that's where Bernal Saint Denis is best at on the floor. And he will actually force wrestling exchanges. He's not going to stand on the feet for too long, like how McKinney will. McKinney will kind of just try to see if he gets some type of like wild flash knockout, and then he just takes too long to get his wrestling going, especially in that fight versus Bonfim. He took too long to get the wrestling going. Bonfim does have good counter striking. I'm not saying that he can't hit Benoit. Benoit can be hit, that is true, but I just think that Benoit Saint Denis, he will be able to get the fight to the floor and kind of work his way from there. All of his wins have come by finish, so maybe you could say this fight's not going to the scorecards, but who knows? Last week we had Trevor Peek versus Chepe Mascarell. That fight should have not went to the judges' scorecard, and it did. So you never really know with these fights, especially these fight nights. But I think Saint Denis, we're just gonna call him Saint Denis. I think Saint Denis is gonna be able to. He might even be able to hurt Bonfim on the feet, because Bonfim is probably gonna be thinking that, I'm just gonna counter strike and I'm the better guy here. I'm this and that, and Saint Denis is gonna be able to work in some takedowns, get the fight slowed down a bit, be able to land something meaningful on the feet, and look for that submission finish on the floor, because clearly Bonfim has some grappling holes down there on the floor. He's been subbed 3 separate times, so that definitely means he could be subbed again. And Saint Denis has 8 submission victories on his record, so I'm going to lean with Saint Denis to win this fight. He also is a heavy underdog, plus 250. I think he might be the biggest underdog that I have winning. Ruziboyev is probably like a plus 140 or so. I know that Luana Carolina is like plus 186, and Saint Denis is plus 250. So those are some 3 underdogs right there who I think should be able to get the W. Next up, we got Melissa Gatto versus Ariana Lipski. Now, Lipski, she does have good striking, and she had a good fight in her last fight versus JJ Aldridge, but I think that was just more so JJ Aldridge just, she's not a wrestler. She's not able to get the fight to the ground. And Lipski's just a better striker. I think because of how much Lipski's been finished recently, people kind of thought that JJ Aldridge was a lock to win that fight, and you can never really say that women's fights are locks. She has good striking, but same thing with Melissa Gatto. Melissa Gatto has good striking herself. She's not lost on the feet. She has good, accurate striking, and she's a beast on the floor. I think that's where her advantage obviously is, and she will actually be able to get the fight to the ground. And when she gets to the fight to the ground, she actually does have the ability to control on top, really, really good on top, and she could, end up searching for a submission. Not saying she's gonna sub Lipski, because Lipski hasn't been subbed before. But just because you haven't been subbed before does not mean you cannot be subbed. And even on the feet, there's a chance that Lipski could be finished. She's been knocked out 4 times. So once you've been knocked out that many times in MMA, there's always a chance for you to be knocked out. And with how accurate Melissa Gatto's striking is, I wouldn't be surprised if she got a knockout. I expected her maybe be dominant on the ground, but I would not be surprised if Melissa Gatto got a knockout. So she's going to be the pick. I think she's like a minus 250 at this point, so she's a pretty decent favorite. But next fight we got is Max Griffin versus Michael Morales. Now, Max Griffin is a tough veteran at this point in UFC. He does have power in his hands, and he did show a bit of an ability to be able to wrestle, to switch it up. You like to see that from guys. Like whenever a fight goes wrong or there's something going wrong inside of the fight, broken hand or something like how Max Griffin had, you like to see fighters make that adjustment. And Max Griffin did that. He made an adjustment, was able to kind of wrestle Tim Means a little bit. But let's be honest, man. Tim Means is far out of his prime. Not much left in the gas tank these days, if I'm being real. And Michael Morales is young, powerful, and ready to go, man. He's ready to go. I think this is going to be a good test for him because Max Griffin is not really a slouch. But at the same time, Max Griffin can be hit. Both guys can be hit. Max Griffin does have power. Michael Morales has shown to be hit. But his last fight, he faced some adversity versus Adam Fugit. And he was able to actually, get the finish later on in that fight. So him being able to go later on in the fight and get the finish, that's what's going to make me lean towards Michael Morales because a lot of times we see these up-and-coming new young talents and we see them get a lot of first-round finishes. It was kind of like that with Emir Shabazian. He was able to get a lot of first-round finishes early, build up a lot of hype, and then, they found out his hole was grappling, and then he just couldn't, go past a round or two. Like, he tends to fade. And that's not the issue with Michael Morales. He actually showed he can get a finish in the later rounds. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Michael Morales to win this fight. I just think he has more ways to win the fight. The way how Max Griffin was able to get takedowns on Morales or get takedowns on Tim Means, he's not going to be able to do that to Morales. And Morales can wrestle himself. Morales can get takedowns on Max Griffin. He can knock him out. So there's multiple ways, for Morales to win this fight. So I'm going to lean with Morales to win. Next up, we got Damir Ismagulov versus Grant Dawson. Now, Damir is coming off that fight versus Sarukian where he pretty much had to defend takedowns the whole fight. Sarukian was 7-21 on takedowns. So you can't win fights just defending takedowns. So that pretty much lost Ismagulov the fight. And he did have like a brief retirement due to some form of medical situation he had going on, but then he kind of unretired and then came back into the cage, and that's never good, guys. That's never good. If somebody has retirement on their mind, like you hear Dana White say all the time, if you thinking about retiring, you should just do it. You know what I'm saying? You can't play with fighting. It's not something you should play around with. But it's not like for Ismagulov, he just was getting beat up and then it was time for him to walk away. He just kind of got out grappled, lost the fight, but he's still a really good fighter. So 24-2 on his record. He was on like a 19-fight win streak or so. So this is a great fighter, but he's going up against Grant Dawson, who is a hell of a wrestler, outstanding control time on the ground. In his last 4 to 5 fights, he has like 8 minutes plus control time in each and every single fight. And his most recent fight against Marco Madsen, he had about 10 minutes of control time. So he's even better than Sarukian with controlling fighters on the ground, like getting that backpack position, just keeping the fighter on the floor, keeping him there, controlling, and he's going to shoot for takedowns. He's going to go for the takedown. So I think he's going to take a blueprint or take a page out of Sarukian's book and kind of just force the wrestling because Ismagulov is a really good striker. Grant Dawson is pretty safe on the feet himself, but he's just not a better striker than Ismagulov. So for me, my pick's going to be Grant Dawson. I just think that it's an obvious path there for Dawson to win. He's really good with control time on the floor, better than Sarukian. I'm not saying he's a better chain wrestler or a scrambler than Sarukian. I'm just saying in terms of controlling the fight on the ground, Grant Dawson is better there. So he should be able to get this win over Ismagulov, especially with all this random retirement medical situation and stuff. I don't think it's just good to just be trying to fight like that in the UFC, especially in the lightweight division. Like nowadays, the lightweight division doesn't really seem as if it's like the best weight class in the UFC. It seems like it's kind of like bantamweight these days, men's bantamweight. But yeah, still nonetheless, it's the UFC. You're in the top 15, you're ranked, and having that kind of back and forth about retirement or not is kind of not good. And then especially you're going up against a guy that has the same style as Arman Sarukian, who you just clearly lost to like 30-27 on all judges' scorecards. So Grant Dawson is going to be the pick. And last but not least, we got Sean Strickland versus Abuzpian Magomedov. Now, Magomedov had a really quick UFC debut versus Dustin Stolfus, and I mean that's just not a guy that you could really look at as like a, oh my goodness, what an impressive victory, and to just say we're gonna give him a number 7 ranked. He's unranked, hasn't fought any ranked fighters. First fight in the UFC, he's gonna fight an unranked guy, and then he's gonna just instantly fight a number 7 ranked Sean Strickland. And, his recent 2 fights, coming off of a knockout loss, to not mention that, he had a fight versus a guy that was literally 0-1. So he got fed a random guy, right? Who was 0-1 and won that fight. And then he had a pretty decent win where he got a choke, a submission choke versus another guy that's a decent fighter, but the level of competition he's been fighting has not been really great. Magomedov is a good striker. He does have the ability to just kind of stand on the feet, pump out that front kick a bit, and have a lot of power behind his strikes. But he's never gone 5 rounds. And I think this is more important to me than anything else. He's never gone 5 rounds in his career. Like, literally, he's never gone 5 rounds in his career. Sean Strickland is not the guy you want to go 5 rounds with. Like, I'm not saying he's a world beater or anything like that, but going up against a guy who hasn't fought any real UFC competition, this should be an easy win for Sean Strickland. I'm not saying, Magomedov is he's dangerous, but Sean Strickland has fought the best of the best. I thought he beat Jared Cannonier. He lost a split decision. If you guys remember that card, that was the last card of last year. The judges' scorecards were all over the place. He lost to Alex Pereira, where this is not an Alex Pereira situation where Alex Pereira was a world-class kickboxer, double champion kickboxing. Not the same situation here. And, he just seemed better competition. That's what this comes down to. Sean Strickland is going to have the volume. He has the takedown defense. If Magomedov wants to try to get the fight to the floor, I don't think that's going to work out too well for him, because I mean, what is he really going to be able to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is he really going to be able to do? So I see Sean Strickland being able to stop any takedown attempts that Magomedov might have, drag the fight out into the latter rounds where he's going to be able to pull away and just keep that volume going. And I think Magomedov is going to get super frustrated, because this is going to be the best fighter that he's ever fought in his career. Because when you're fighting in PFL and all these other random regional scenes, you're fighting a bunch of cans. Now, I'm not saying that Magomedov is not dangerous, because he definitely is dangerous, but I just don't see him being able to just come into the UFC, beat a can in Dustin Stoltzfus, whatever you want to call him, and then just get a number 7 ranked middleweight and just come in and be able to get the win. Unless it's a decision and he does pretty decent to go 5 rounds and he just ends up getting a judge's decision, and maybe. But no, like, all 5 of Sean Strickland's last fights, 4 out of his last 5 fights, they were 5-round fights, and he went 5 rounds in 4 of them. One of them, obviously, he lost to Alex Pereira, which was a 3-round fight. But the other 4 fights he's had, all 5 rounds, all main events. And he's went 5 rounds every single time, and he's won all of them. Like, I thought he got robbed versus Cannonier. So, I mean, take what you want to take with that. But that's gonna do it for the video, guys. Nice in-depth, broken down, detailed, breakdown of this card. We're gonna be doing this every single week. I finally got back on track. I finally, me just even being in front of the mic right now is a blessing. Being able to just finally get back to this and just get things back rolling is really cool. So make sure you guys drop a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So I'll see you guys in the next video, man. It's your boy Jared Bless, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.